Hi, and welcome to the Loan Officer Team Training Podcast. I'm super excited today to have a really special guest. His name is Garrett Gunderson, and he is a money guru, I would call it. I know probably guru is not a very fun word to call yourself, but I just think you're amazing. And I want to introduce everybody to you in the loan officer community and through any community. But welcome today, Garrett.
Thanks for having me. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you. I kind of wanted to talk about how we met. We were introduced by Roberto Monaco, who's a mutual friend of ours. And
One of my favorite people on the planet, just the big Brazilian ball of love, right? Like just love and energy, just one of the best.
Yes, absolutely. Love and energy from the first moment I met him. And I'm sure you felt the same way. You could feel that love coming from him and the energy.
Yeah, just it's like I went to his wedding and it was just such an amazing experience. First off, all of his friends from Brazil came and it was like warping back in the 80s. They had like the ties around their head before the end of the night. They're jumping around and it was a really special occasion. And I mean, he's such a gentle person because I was not a good speaker when I met him. And I was speaking in Costa Mesa. It was a really weird setup because it was like an atrium almost. So there was people walking up above and it was like I was nervous and he filmed it and it was just terrible. But he found the good in it and reinforced it and then flew in and spent a day with me. And I spoke that night and it was transformative. It was just like so much better. And, he's so good at like picking that out. So sorry for the Roberto Love Fest. He's just one of those people that I just, adore.
He should have a love fest because he's a great person and he's great with everybody he meets, he's really great with. And so just for context, Roberto Monaco runs a company called Influenceology, where he teaches people how to do presentations. And that's how you met him. And I love that he spent the day with you and everything was transformative because think about it. He transformed your life in one full day, but I'm sure it was constant. He was there with you every minute, helping you, getting to know you, training you. That must have been a great experience.
Yeah, and he always has like this reinforcement of what's good and then what to improve. So it's not like you feel beat up afterwards. You feel pretty good. And then I had him training my team and, we've spoken at a bunch of events together since all this happened. And I was speaking in South Carolina. He was like, you're coming to stay at my house. So I got to see him around his kids and yeah, great guy.
Oh, that's so great. When I met him, he didn't even have kids yet. Well, when you met him, he didn't have kids either, right?
He wasn't even married yet. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, 2003, probably when I met him.
Yeah. So it was so great. And he has an event coming up in June that is in Atlanta that's going to be really good called Influencing from the Front. And I'm actually going to go to it again.
Nice.
It's going to be nice to see him. But I wanted to let people know who you are and what you do. So if you can kind of give us a little bit of a background about how you got started working with money, how important it is to you as far as how you look at it, your mindset. Tell us about it.
I mean, I come from money. My family is awesome. My mom and dad both worked. My dad was a coal miner and my mom worked at a credit union and I started a business and I would clean cars, clean some of the repossessed vehicles from the credit union, even help my dad with some of the surface mine vehicles, cleaning them when the bosses would come into town. And I just, I actually got into business competitions with it, won the Young Entrepreneur of the Year for the state of Utah. It came with $5,000. I'm like, ooh, I thought that was so much money. And I was like, I'm going to invest this. But I wasn't 18 and I needed a custodian. And my mom was like, you don't know what you're doing. Like, you can't just go invest that. You'll lose it all. And she's probably right. I might have done that. But that was my start because then when I finally turned 18, I was just infinitely curious. I'd ask anyone that I knew with money, like whether it was, uncles or whether it was just, people that were graduated from the university I was going to, but in the same fraternity. I was just like constantly looking to learn. And I got offered an internship when I was 19 at a financial firm. And so I just dove into that and probably invested more time learning in that than I did in school. But I don't know, I just kind of had a mind for the money thing. And I just realized, like, I remember what I would read in that world. And sometimes I'd read in other topics and it was like, just couldn't remember what it was. It was like in one ear, out the other. I was interested in economics. I was interested in finance. And I just, I was young and I want to be rich. I was like, if I could just be rich, then that means I've made it. And so it was a very naive mindset, but it kind of got me going.
Yeah. But it's interesting when people step into their purpose in life, it starts sometimes when they're young, just the things that you're interested in, the things that matter to you. Like you were curious and you
Yeah.
wanted to learn, and that ended up being what you ended up helping people with down the road.
Yeah, definitely. Just it also taught me how to speak then because I had to give my first presentation when I was 15. I had
Oh,
business for 6 months, and then I got entered the Students in Free Enterprise competition. It was $1,000 for first place, 750 for second, 500 for third, and I made third place with my business only doing 700 about of revenue or maybe net income. So I made
wow.
$500 from one speech, and I had been scrubbing, tar and bugs off of cars. So I was like, maybe I should be a speaker. Maybe that's my future.
Oh, well, you ended up being a speaker, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it all ties in. I just love hearing your story and knowing where you started and what you ended up doing. So after that, you won third place and that was great. And then what
Yeah,
did you end up doing after that?
so then I won first the next year for that, and then that's what led me to the state. I won the 5,000 bucks, and then I went to school in finance, and it just happened that one of my professors managed $5 billion in municipal bond funds, and so he was a brilliant money guy. He used to do international equities, and I just became friends with him, worked out with him, learned from him. He eventually became a client. We've stayed in touch over the years, so he was really instrumental in helping me out. And I was able to team up with some really young, smart guys. Now I was 21 and these guys were like 30, 32, 33, but they
Uh-huh.
were just questioning everything and constantly attending stuff. And we decided let's get together and let's figure out this financial game. And we started hosting events and we created this movement called the Producer Revolution that we would charge like 20 bucks a month. And it was way back in the day. It was physical newsletters, physical CDs, that
Hmm.
kind of stuff, and then daily emails. And we just realized that no matter how much money someone had, if they didn't conquer their scarcity mindset, it didn't matter. That scarcity would destroy that wealth. It would destroy them. It was like, how can we help them to be more abundant? How can we help them to feel more comfortable and make money an asset and an ally instead of an enemy? And how do we help them discover like a life they don't want to retire from and how to enjoy life along the way? And it was a radically different shift in the world of finance than most people are taught because we've been kind of taught that save money and then one day you can retire. And I'm like, well, I kind of like, I took a summer off in Italy once and that was amazing. But by the end, I was like, I'm ready to go back to work. And then I sold my business in 2021 and then I did a little comedy tour. I did two comedy tours and did a comedy special around the topic of money because I'm not the funniest comedian, but I'm probably the funniest money comedian. And so after that was done, I kind of had this like time where I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And I was kind of like watching some TV and hanging out and creating hobbies. And I was like, man, this isn't fulfilling enough. So I really like to be engaged in the world of value creation. I really enjoy the work that I do. And so I really want to help people to heal their relationship to money and help create more cash flow and help them as the ebbs and flows of life happens, right? Like,
Hmm.
especially in the loan world, you have these like times like in 21 and 22 where it's like everyone's refinancing, everyone's trying to lock in that low interest rate. And then
Yes.
all of a sudden interest rates go up substantially. And all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, nobody wants to sell their home because they don't want to pay more for the next one with a higher interest rate. So it's only new home buyers. And there's a way to handle those things. And it really comes down to like our mindset. It really comes down to the daily actions that we take. And if we allow those things to really diminish our thoughts into despair and victimhood, it's never really a healthy, wealthy situation.
Hmm. One of the things that I love about your book, and I've been reading it, Money Unmasked is the book that I've been reading, but I also ordered the beginning, I don't know what you call it, beginner's three books. And I'm going to show them if you're on YouTube: Killing Sacred Cows, Money Unmasked, and What Would the Rockefellers Do? And I'm dying to get into the rest of them. But what I love about the way you teach is that you don't teach scarcity, which is save all of our money. Let's make sure we save, save, save. My husband and I come from opposite ends of the way we look at money. We've been married 45 years now and we've gotten through it. Most people probably would have thought about divorce or whatever over money stuff because he's a saver. I'm a spender. And so together, I'm also a good earner. So when I earn, he helps save and we have because we work as a team that way.
That's the
But
key.
we're always going through the mental dialogue in our head about money. I grew up, my dad always taught me that I could do anything. I could learn anything, do anything, be anything if I wanted to, if I put in the hard work. And I did get that message growing up, but he never, no matter how great that message was and how great my self-talk was because of my parents, not every parent has something that they don't teach you, right? Nobody gets away being a parent without making mistakes.
Right.
And I never learned about money growing up. When I wanted something, my dad gave me a credit card. So imagine what that was like. My mom and I would go shopping, but we would use a credit card. I never saw cash. And this was a long time ago, but now it's normal to have debit cards and, all of that. And now you have to probably teach it a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like money's become less real, right? It's like, it is just kind of like an app. It's, you got Venmo and PayPal and Zelle and Cash App and, and it's like, it's become where it's more distant. It's almost like when you go to Vegas and you get chips and then people are putting chips on the table because those don't seem real, like if you're putting actual cash, right? You
Yes.
just once. And so the more disconnected we are from it, the more reckless we might become if we don't learn the basic tenets of money. And so I don't think that budgeting is the answer where a lot of people do. I think that it's about mindful cash management. How do we start automating our savings, pay ourselves first, and then classify our income in 4 categories? Number 1, what are the destructive expenses that we should eliminate? These are vices that are out of control and addictions or things we're paying for monthly that we're not benefiting from. But then we pay cash for our lifestyle expenses, the things that we enjoy, and actually redefine how we look at expense. Most people hear it as negative or wrong or bad, but it's how we utilize money. And having some guilt-free spending or value-based spending can really transform our life. And then the third thing is protective expenses, building up enough savings, building up, transferring risk with insurance, having asset protection or kind of a legacy plan. Those are all things that are really important for protective expenses. Because if we don't have them, then we're a financial surprise away from having to, have a setback or a start over. And then finally, the most important one is a productive expense. We put $1 in, more than $1 comes out. That's not something to be budgeted. We just keep doing it as long as it's still effective and we can manage it. So if we just simply differentiate our expenses and pay ourselves first, we can live off the rest without having to be miserly. And my recommendation is get to the point where you're saving 18% off the top. Now, that might be hard to do for some people. So you start with progress over perfection. Then you just look to ways to plug financial leaks. A lot of people overpay tax. A lot of people overpay on interest. A lot of people just don't have the eyes to see the hidden fees with their investments, or they don't design their insurances properly. And this could be 10% or more of their income simply being lost to inefficiency. And if we could plug those leaks, it helps them keep more of what they make. And then, the reason for 15% is we need 3% just to handle like technological change. We're going to be buying things in the future that doesn't exist today. We need another 3% for planned obsolescence. There's things that break down and we have to replace them, right? We used to have a Viking dishwasher. I thought that was great, but it must have been little Vikings licking the plates. They were never quite clean. So we had to replace that, right? Then another one is taxes. Taxes fluctuate. So we need another 3% for kind of tax fluctuations. Another 3% for propensity to consume. Let me say that easier. A luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. There's just certain things that once you have it, you're like, I don't want to go back.
That's true.
I grew up going to motels. I don't want to stay in a motel. I stay in hotels now. It's a little different.
I'd rather not go than to stay in a motel now.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm driving up to it and walking in the door, it's probably not the place for me. So, and then finally, it's really about inflation. So that's the 15%. So the last 3% is what I call a living wealthy account. Set even up a separate account that when it has money in it, you've saved 15%. So that's your guilt-free spending. You just get to spend it how you want, as long as it's not a destructive expense. If you like a good dinner, great, splurge. If you like nice clothes, it's just it's there to put into yourself because you've already done the other things properly.
I love that. So how do you suggest that people get started with that? What would be the first step for someone who's never really paid attention to managing their money or to any of the money tips that you have for them? What would you suggest?
There's a program called Current, Currence. And they can just DM me on Instagram, Garrett B. Gunderson, and I can send them a link. But that will get them to separate their accounts and has an automated system with technology so they can make these intentional choices. It's probably the most effective way to do it. And, it's now we're making intentional decisions up front about what we're going to pay ourselves and then live off the rest. And that system really builds the flow and the buckets to do so.
And I don't think it's ever too late. Doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. The younger, the better, obviously, because then you can have more later. But even at the age I'm at now, it's never too late to start something new. I've learned new habits just in the last few years, money habits that I never had before, which are great because I was unwilling to learn certain things because I wanted to hold on to being able to do what I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it. And during the good times, we could do that. But even it doesn't matter. It was that much that we didn't save for the future or invest or that type of thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, I always like to know what we can do, not just what needs to be done, but how do we do it?
Yeah.
That's the
Definitely.
biggest thing.
I mean, and people could just go to their bank and set up a separate account and have a sweep account that every time they make a deposit, a percentage goes to that other account. And that becomes kind of that, peace of mind fund or their wealth capture account. And they start automating their savings and then build up enough liquidity that they can handle 6 months of expenses if something were to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nice, like loan officers know if you have seasoned money, that's a good situation when you're getting a loan.
Definitely.
So, just having some of that liquidity and availability is helpful and have it separated because if it's not separated, it gets commingled. There's a thing called
Yes.
Parkinson's Law. And Parkinson's Law states if someone has an increase in income with no plan, their expenses will rise to meet or exceed that increase. So the important thing is to have these like automated structures. But I'm a believer in automatically saving than deliberately investing. Too many people are mindlessly investing money, not knowing if it's working out, not measuring the cash flow, not protecting the downside. So automate the savings and then get clear about what I call your investor DNA. Your investor DNA is your values, like what's important to you, your competencies, what you're best at, and then your drivers, what you have your interest in. And then you start to invest in alignment with your investor DNA so you become a better investor, which means there's a lot of investments that might not make sense for someone because it's not what they're good at. I would say it this way. Risk isn't really in the investment, it's in the investor. Some people are good at real estate, others are not. Some people are good at business, others are not. Some people understand Bitcoin, others don't. So it's like you have to know your investor DNA when you invest.
Yeah, I love that. And you go through that in the book.
In the
I'm sure
Sacred
in all
Cows
of your books, but
too. Yeah,
Money
Sacred Cows too is
Unmasked.
where I go into a lot of detail in Sacred Cows. Yeah.
Yes, that's the one I'm going to read. You told me that I should probably read this one first, right?
That's the original, but I just rewrote it and it's updated and got the investor DNA segments that weren't in it in the first version. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn about it and to do the things that you suggest. So, what is it that you love the most about working with helping people regarding money?
Well, there's this like, I like to help them get through their money story because their money story starts at this level of like what they're willing to share. And that's usually like part of the story. It might not even be real. It might be just what they say so they don't have to deal with things and it's what they say out loud. But then there's the stuff that they won't share. It's kind of the stuff that's stuck in their head and they judge themselves. It's where the guilt and the shame or the embarrassment or the frustration or whatever comes from. And if I can create a safe space for them and they share that, it lets go of the hold over them. They start to heal from it, which gets them to this third layer of what they can't share because it's a blind spot. It's a money block. But once they start releasing these other things, then it gets to show them where they might not be in the best place. And what happens when people break through that is they get happier. They feel more fulfilled. They make more bold choices. They start to cultivate a vision. They start to feel more free and light. And so I like that aspect of it. I like it's like I love saving people tax, but it's kind of the same thing to a certain degree. I like people, recovering cash and, restructuring things so that they keep more of what they make and protect their assets. But that's all kind of transactional. I like to get where like we're in a legacy conversation where we're in like what really matters to them and what does a life they love look like and what things matter most to them. Those are the things that light me up because it's unique. I get to hear each person's story and get to understand them more and what makes them tick. And, it's pretty cool to watch like generational healing that they can change their entire family's trajectory when they heal from these things.
Oh boy, isn't that the truth? Yeah. And I feel like I'm still on that journey. I haven't learned everything I need to learn. And like I said, it's never too
Me
late.
too. I write about these things in an experience and like, oh yeah, this is what I was writing about. Like this is what it feels like. It's like I don't think anyone's so enlightened that they don't go through these lessons in life, And I think mistakes are part of the process, and they don't really make us less lovable. They just make us human, and it's just a matter of let's learn from them so we don't have to repeat them.
Yes,
And a mistake becomes a lesson if we learn from it. It only becomes a loss if we ignore it.
that's the truth. Yes. And that goes back to mindset, how we think, how the things that we say to ourselves, our self-talk that goes on in our mind. What is something that you do with your mindset to make sure that you stay on track in what you're saying to yourself, whether it's about money or anything else, your business, whatever it is? Have you taken any steps are you intentional about it?
Yeah, because I still have those bouts of scarcity at times. I'm just aware of it. Maybe in my
Yes.
younger years I wasn't aware of it. It was just what I thought reality was. Now I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh, this isn't healthy thinking, or this emotion isn't helpful. So I do some personal writing sometimes. I just answer questions like, what do I need to, what am I trying to protect, defend, or control? What's the emotions I feel behind this? What do I need to accept, or what do I need to forgive? And then what can I love about this? What can I learn from this? And I'll write that. Or sometimes I'll just call people like we mentioned Roberto, and I'll just add value to his life, and then I feel better by adding value to someone's life. Or maybe what I'll do is, just call a peer or a mentor and tell them what I'm going through. Just be honest and transparent so we can work through it. And, they can help me. They can ask me questions. They can support me. And I think a lot of people get in isolation when they feel this way. They judge
Yes.
themselves, and then they just, they prolong it and they ruminate in it. It goes in their mind too often. And so, like, you just have to recognize everyone's going through something. You could look at someone and be like, they've got the perfect life. And I've seen that before. I had some friends like, dude, that dude's got the best life. I'm like, I hung out with him. And then I talked to two people like, he's kind of a dick. They're like, he just doesn't care. And I was like, whoa, like, I guess there is always some issue there that we have to learn from,
Yes.
and when we let go of this perfectionism, we can get to honesty, and honesty is the pathway to progress. And so, but it's not brutal honesty of being mean to us. It's about how can we be kinder to ourselves, forgive and learn, and how can we just, connect to purpose, and how can we be a value creator, and how can we just know that there's ebbs and flows, like it's part of the process.
Hmm. And just knowing it's an ebb and flow, and when you ask yourself those questions and you write. I'm a writer. I love to journal. I love to write things
Mhm.
down, and it really helps me. Sometimes when I can't sleep, and I wake up really early and I'll get my journal out and I'll just write my thoughts, and just write your
Right.
thoughts down. And I love those questions you just asked, so that we can know. I'm going to put it in the show notes so people will see it
Cool.
and ask those questions of ourselves, because I think they're important. I love that you shared that. So. Are you holding off on training your loan partners, your loan assistants, your team members, and support staff on how to wow your clients? Are they getting that kind of training from you? You probably plan on training them if you get a few extra hours, but when does that happen realistically? And meanwhile, your team is doing the best they can with the information that they have. But this kind of training really doesn't exist anywhere else. When you do the training, that means you're not as responsive as you want to be with your clients, and you're not hitting your closing and income goals as a loan officer. So how much is it costing you to not have a team that's properly trained how to wow clients and referral partners so that they only want to work with you because of the great experience that they're getting? We teach them how to use efficient step-by-step processes and systems that work, how to follow up so nothing falls through the cracks and loans close on time and even early, how to build wonderful relationships with clients, how to wow people so they go, man, that was an amazing experience. The members of his or her team are amazing. They're so on it. How to use scripts and dialogues for winning clients, setting expectations, and communicating with clients so that you can prevent problems down the road. How to handle difficult clients, how to make clients feel appreciated and valued, and how to handle and overcome objections. It might be time to ask for some help. That's why we're here. Loan Team Training has our next live WOW training coming up. We train your team for you so you can focus on closing loans. Check it out at loanteamtraining.com for our next class, and see how many 5-star reviews we have from past WOW training participants and their loan officers who sent them at loanteamtrainingreviews.com. Remember, it's an interactive virtual training with live trainers, and we train any of your support staff that is communicating with clients and referral partners. Our sessions are 9 to 11:30 Pacific time. Check us out and sign your loan partner or team member up at loanteamtraining.com. What's an experience that you've had in your life that has taught you a great lesson? You probably have hundreds of them, but what's one thing that you can think of that really helped you learn a great lesson?
I've had a hard time at times standing for my value and knowing my worth.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, I've stayed in relationships that weren't fruitful anymore because they said, well, they're kind of hangers on, and I didn't want to ruffle feathers. And I thought I was being a team player, but I wasn't being a leader. And so I've learned to have those difficult conversations. And instead of allowing their feelings to dictate my future, because a lot of times they get emotional and then I succumb to that and I just go, all right, I'll get paid less. Like I had a situation recently where we had an agreement I was going to get paid 25%. They've only been paying me 15%. And I was like, cool, well, I'm just going to move on. Like, and they were mad about it. And I was like, well, hey, I'm worth more than that. And in the past, I might have been like, whatever, it's 10%. But it's like, hey, I'm actually providing a ton of value in this. And so I was able to, it was difficult conversations, but I had them. In the past, I might have waited months or worst case, years just tolerating that. And so I think that as soon as we know how to create agreements and when other people break their agreements, go, okay, this doesn't work and we can move on. Integrity is a two-way street. And some people like me might be people pleasers and just want to be liked and respected and accommodate at their own expense. And so that's been a hard lesson because I really care about people. I really want these rich relationships. But the reality is it's a two-way street and I have to stand for who I am and what I'm up to. And I also feel like sometimes there's nothing to kill a vision like a small mind. And some people that might serve you at a certain point don't always come along for the ride because they don't want to grow. And it doesn't make them bad people, but it does make it that if you stay in the relationship, you're limiting your value. And it might limit your fulfillment and joy as well.
I love that. And people really need to be able to not only have their own value, to show their own value themselves, but they have a family to take care of. And one of the things as a coach that I'm always reminding people is that if you don't make this decision or make this change, or if you're trying to be a people pleaser, what will happen is it will affect your family. Would you rather please that person or would you rather please your wife or your husband
My
or your
wife called me
children?
out. My wife was just like, hey, you're not going to do like this is why would you suffer this? We don't get you if you're doing that. Like we want you to be fully who you are, stand up for it. Like she coached me through the whole thing. She's brilliant that way.
Yeah. Isn't it great to have a great spouse that will help you with that? I
For
don't know
sure.
what I would do without my husband. He is my rock and he helps me get through a lot of things that, he knows me so well
Yeah.
and he's my biggest supporter. And I'm just really grateful for him. Grateful that I knew the right person to marry and that we're very different. We're very different. He's an introvert. I'm more of an extrovert and he is more quiet and he doesn't like the fanfare and I'm probably the opposite.
Yeah.
I don't mind being on the stage, but he doesn't like that. He would rather just be in the background and do his thing. It's important though that you have somebody in your corner like that, like your wife does with you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
How have you taught your children to work with money? Like I'm always curious, somebody who's really good at something, how are they teaching their children or their grandchildren, in your case it'd be your children, how to deal with that you're really, really good at? And do they accept it from you as easily as they would?
They have, especially lately. Like when they were young, what we did was we had them bid jobs. We didn't pay, what is it, for chores because we didn't give them an allowance because I'm like, no, these are just the requirements to live here. We all have to chip in. But if you
Uh-huh.
want to make money, then you can come up with ideas and you can, make proposals and I'll either say yes or no. And sometimes they underbid and I was a hell yes. And they learned that that was way more work than they thought. And other times it was a hell no. They realized that they overbid. And so they had to invoice to get their money and that kind of stuff. So that was helpful. I had a friend, Chris Smith, that was like, hey, you should just, have your kids pay for what they need, but make them go 50-50 on what they want. Half their money, half your money. And I thought that was a really good idea. And so, that's something that we started to integrate recently, even though my kids are a little bit older. And then I just am there for them when they're ready to talk. Like 2 nights ago, had a conversation with my son and two of his friends, and we were talking about Bitcoin, and we were talking about the Federal Reserve, and we're like they had to ask the questions, and I was excited to talk to them about it. Just a few weeks ago during prom, I was taking my son to get the car washed, and we sat there and talked about all sorts of financial things. And so both of them are saving 50% of their income right now, my oldest and youngest, and they're really doing great with that. And they ask a lot about different money things. And my oldest has read Money Unmasked. He edits a lot of my videos, so I think it's really permeating and get to his mind. But there was other times I tried to lecture him and they didn't want to hear it because I just had to be there when they were ready. And my wife
Yeah.
really reminded me of that. It's just sometimes you just got to listen. And then we're on a trip and they're like, hey, how does this work? Boom, I'm just ready to go. Let's talk. This is great.
They open the door and you go in for sure.
Yeah. Because I
Oh,
don't want it just to be like Charlie Brown teacher, wah, wah, wah. You know, like sometimes we're driving to the cabin and it's like lecture circuit. I'm sitting there. But I also wrote this theatrical keynote that's like a one-man show around the book Money Unmasked. And my son helped me memorize all the lines. So he got to hear all that over and over again. And we had really important conversations that came up. And he's like, but dad, don't you have to sacrifice to succeed? And that was like, I was saying that you don't have to. And so we had this beautiful conversation around that and what that means. And so, yeah.
I love that. And you have a comedy show, so tell us about that.
So when I sold my business, like, look, from the time I was 5, I loved comedy. My uncles are hilarious on both sides of the family. My mom has an infectious laugh. My dad's got a dry sense of humor. And so I could repeat these dirty jokes and not get in trouble, you know? And it got to the point where our family would get together from the time I was in college and they'd want me to tell these jokes and everybody's sitting there laughing. And, you know, so it just felt like love. And then I always had this desire to do comedy. But it wasn't until one of my buddies introduced me as hilarious when he introduced me at his event. And so I told some jokes that went well. So I decided I'm going to do an open mic. And that went really well. And these guys that do local comedy are like, you should open for us. That was really good. So I started opening for them. And then this manager was there when they were filming their comedy special. I did a really good set. And he's like, I think you got something here, especially around money. So we did a comedy special in 2021. It's on Amazon Prime called The American Ream. You drop the D, and it's The American Ream. I thought, hey, if we could laugh, then maybe we could reach people that normally wouldn't learn about money. And I could just have a hell of a good time doing it as well.
That sounds like fun. And making people laugh, there's something about laughter that's really important in life.
Yeah,
If you can laugh through things, it's a lot better than just being serious all the time.
definitely. It's a good way to
Yeah.
heal. Good
Yeah,
way to.
it sure is. Yep.
We remember 3 times more when we laugh, so that's helpful too. And when I
Yes.
speak and I tell jokes, it kind of resets the room. Everybody has more energy than if it's just, just drilling them with content. That could be really exhausting. And I tend to talk fast at times.
Yeah. What about fear? How do you handle fear? When fear comes up and rears its ugly head, what do you do with that?
I have mentors that I talk to. Actually, one of them's one of my wife's best friends, so she's staying at the house this week, and so we talk every other week. And then I have another mentor that I could just reach out to at any time. And if I'm dealing with those things, I just reach out to them. And my wife is a good sounding board for that. And I think a lot of people have a hard time when they're in fear talking to their spouse because they don't want to make them afraid. But I
Yes,
but I realize is like my wife can sense it and feel it, and then it makes her more concerned if I don't talk. So
for
I'll
sure.
talk to her, I'll talk to Kelsey or these guys, Jim and Brian, and that's just all really helpful because I have those bouts. After selling my business and unwinding some partnerships, and I had a kidney issue. I got pretty like I was in a pretty bad spot and pretty dark place, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna need some help. So I just reached out, and that's how I got my kidney healed, and that's how I got past that like bad thinking because I was, I wrote about scarcity, but I didn't really experience it at a deep level until 2023, where I was like, oh, what's gonna happen with my health? And I sold my business, and what am I doing next? And I don't like this partnership I'm in, and it was like, yeah, it was a lot of a lot to go through, and thank goodness I just had the right people that I was able to reach out to and talk through and get through it.
Yeah, it's important to reach out and realize that this isn't going to last forever. We know that fear makes us afraid of things that may never happen too. But
Right.
I love that you have a good circle around you. And I think that's important to have the right people around you to be able to talk through things. And I like to journal as well. And when I have fear, to write down exactly what I'm thinking. But when you see it on paper, it's different than when it's just rolling around in your head, don't you think?
It starts to organize it and make it less substantial because in our head we might have 3 things going on. It feels like 30. Once you write it down, it's like, oh, there's only these couple things. So yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
the main things.
Yep.
What keeps you going when things are tough? Like what motivates you to keep going regardless?
I have a vision bigger than any problem that I have, and
Hmm.
I'm just committed to whatever it takes and being resourceful and getting there. And I just look at those tough times as like these are the times for me to learn and to build character. And I always know that in retrospect, when I look back, it's going to inform my story and it's going to be essential for me to learn what I need to learn. So I try to look at it as like karma, and I'm just going through something, not as like this is what my life is destined to be forever.
Huh?
And there's like I have so much energy today. I've just been like having the best meetings and just feel really like free and excited. But there's like in 2023, I just had day after day of just like, man, what, like, I'm not in a good place. And I was like, will I get to a good place? But I was definitely questioning that. And I was like, how did I make these mistakes? But it led to defining what I really wanted moving forward and what really mattered moving forward. And I wouldn't have discovered that without that questioning, without that difficulty, without that pain, you know? So I hated it. When I'm in pain or in fear, I'm like, all right, I feel like this is God getting my attention and saying it's time to nudge you into a new direction.
Yes.
And it gets that attention. And so when I contextualize it that way, it lessens it, even though it's still real, even though it's still, I still have that feeling. Like I just carried around pain in 2023. I just always felt heavy. I always felt, and my wife was like, man, you just don't seem happy. And like, it's like, it was a really tough spot to be in, especially you think about all the books I've written and the people that I've helped. And I was like feeling distant from that. And I was feeling disenchanted. And, just 2 years before that, I was at the top of my, like, wow, I just sold my business. I'm doing comedy. We're filming a comedy special. I'm meeting, like, I have 8 Emmy winners on the crew. It was just like this amazing experience that all of a sudden was now like, I don't know.
Yeah. We all go through it. That's what I love about talking with you, Garrett, is that you're so authentic, you're so transparent. And even though you are the top of your game, you are at the top. If you think about it, you're at the top of people that talk about money and what I would call a guru. But yet you're transparent about the things that you've gone through and how it's made you better. And that's why I really wanted to have you on today, because I want people to see from someone who's at the top how they work through things, because we all need that. We all need to work through things. And it's important that they hear it from somebody that's been through it and has succeeded as well.
Well, thank
So
you.
I appreciate that. So my other question that I have for you is, what do you feel like your superpower is? And none of these questions have been asked to you in advance. You didn't even know what I was going to ask you. So
I think that I'm a catalyst that can cast a vision. I'm like, because of that, I'm fairly like, I start to remove the status quo and move things along. Like, I think like What Would the Rockefellers Do has been a revolutionary book in an industry that's been antiquated. I think that Killing Sacred Cows called out stuff that everyone now resonates once they read it, but like for decades we're indoctrinated with something else. And, I just think that I'm like just committed to doing what's best, not just for me, but what's best for like the people around me. And that's, like I could make a lot more money if I sold 401ks. I just don't believe in them. Like, so I have a good life and I'm not enslaved to teaching something that doesn't resonate. I'm just okay with that, and then like I'm willing to let go of things that are comfortable to go to the next level, like leave financial firms that were paying me and I had renewals to be like, no, I want to make a bigger splash and do something that's more visionary. So I think vision is really where I have the most ability.
that's great. Do you do one-on-one coaching? What are your offerings as far as how you help people?
Twice a month I do one-on-ones. So people like fly in on a Thursday to Salt Lake City. I take them up to my lodge and I have my assistant there. She takes notes the whole time. I really just get to know them on that first day. The second day we roll up the sleeves, get their financial house in order, remove the money blocks, start to design their life. It's like a really magical experience, and I do that twice a month. They call it Cash Cabin. I have a program called Multiplier that's for entrepreneurs, whether they're 1099 or whether they own a business, and I help them get their financial house in order. I help them become financially independent, and then we help them free their mind, and then they get one-on-one support with that. I teach every week. I have one today. And then we've got something coming out using AI tools to help people get their financial house in order for the masses, because what the ultra wealthy have access to, the average person can't afford. And
Right.
I've been for 25 years wanting to provide that for the average person, but haven't been able to make that happen until now. Thanks to AI, we're now able to make that extraordinarily affordable and effective. And I found the right partners to bring that out. So I also license my content to other financial advisors, and that's kind of the main things that I'm up to. But I'm really committed to being one of the most influential financial teachers for entrepreneurs, which means I'm going all in on media. I'm starting to invest and grow the social media side to help people that I'll never meet so they could get a better situation. And that's how I see my service as. Where before I never really did much that way, because I was writing books and I was speaking on stages, and I was kind of villainizing social media as, a waste of time, but I realize people are going to be on it, so I might as well help them instead of, so I've just been building a team around that this year and really excited about what we're going to start bringing to people with our long form podcast on YouTube or our daily Instagram videos, and, really working on the skills to be more effective with that.
Yeah, you can really help people that way
Yeah,
in a way that it doesn't cost them anything, but they learn.
totally.
And eventually they become clients. But that isn't, you don't do it for that. You do it to help them.
Yeah, the right people might say, "Hey, I need some additional support," and yeah, I love that. But if we could just pour into them and help people out, whether we ever meet them or not, I think that just puts a
Yes,
lot of good in the world and makes me feel really good about myself, honestly.
it does. It does. And you do a great job at it. Where can people find you on social media right now, and your website as well?
GarrettGunderson.com is the website. I have a blog on there. I put out one a week, sometimes every other week, but I write it. It's not written by AI. I really take the time with it. Garrett B. Gunderson is my Instagram. And if
Okay.
people want, if they want a copy of my books, they can just, I'll give them my audio books, the 3 that you held up. If they just, let me know they came from you, and we'll hook them up.
That'd be awesome. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you taking your time here. It's been so eye-opening for a lot of people, I'm sure, as they listen to this and as they watch you speaking. It's something that is really needed, and it's not talked about enough. And like I said earlier, that's not been my strength, is what to do with money. My strength is earning it, not what to do with it. So
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be talking more about that later, but I just appreciate you being here, taking your time. I know your time is really valuable, and you've got time with your family, and you're all about freedom, having
Well,
freedom to choose what you want to do
yep,
and who you want to do it with.
definitely.
Yeah. So thank you for being here. I
It's
appreciate
great.
it so much.
Really enjoy it. Take care.
All righty. You too. Thank you so much for being here today. And can you do me a favor? If you got value from this, would you do me a favor and go and subscribe to our podcast? And if you feel like there's something that you could share that was good from our podcast today, if you could leave a review, I would really appreciate it. So have an enjoyable day and an enjoyable week.